Samuel took a look at Yara's phone screen. The picture showed Ross holding Natalie by the hip as she leaned in his embrace. They were holding each other's gazes in what looked like a romantic moment. When Yara saw Samuel knitting his brows, she continued to add fuel to the fire. Samuel, I took these pictures just now. Therefore, I'm not lying to you. Natalie is not satisfied with only getting your affection, so she clamors for other men. Just when Ross was about to explain, Natalie shot him a look to stop him. Narrowing his gaze, Samuel paused for a long while before asking, "What are these photos about?" Raising her head to meet his gaze, she answered, "I just want to know if you trust me." Just when Yara wanted to use the opportunity to tell Samuel about how much she cared, Samuel replied without any hesitation, "I do." That was what Samuel truly believed. Nevertheless, he couldn't help but feel jealous when he saw her in an intimate position with another man, even though it wasn't what it looked like. As a result, he clenched his fists so tightly that his veins began to bulge. Cognizant of how possessive he was, Natalie knew that he had tried very hard to suppress his emotions when he answered her. Thus, she held his hand and shook it gently before suggesting, "Samuel, I can explain it to you at home." Suddenly, Samuel leaned toward her and bit her ear in front of everyone. Knitting her brows, Natalie endured the urge to moan. After the bite, he whispered, "When we're home, you should explain to me in bed and continue to do so till I'm satisfied." Natalie was speechless. Why do I have a feeling that the explanation he is looking for is a lot more difficult to achieve than the actual explanation itself? Once he had finished, Samuel backed off from Natalie. When Yara saw how they interacted, her face turned pale. Any man would never be able to accept having their partner cheat on them, especially someone like Samuel. However, he doesn't seem bothered by it. Yara refused to give up. "Samuel, you saw the pictures with your own eyes. But why do you still protect her? Can it be that you can tolerate her cheating on you behind your back dash?" Just when Yara wanted to continue, Natalie grabbed a cup of hot coffee and splashed it on Yara's chest.
Ah!
Yara screamed when she was scalded by it. "You dash." Subsequently, she froze in shock as the skin on her chest began to turn red from being scalded. At the same time, her white gown was utterly ruined from the coffee stain. She looked as if she had fallen into a pool of mud instead. "Yara, I'm just seeking justice for my subordinate," Natalie declared as she casually put the coffee cup back on the table with a sharpened gaze. "Nevertheless, you still owe me more than just a cup of coffee." "More than just a cup of coffee?" Yara's pupils constricted. At that moment, she noticed that Natalie's gaze was similar to that of her sister when she tried to burn her to death 5 years ago. Furthermore, Natalie always made her feel a looming sense of dread. Other than the fact that Samuel kept falling deeper in love with Natalie, Yara somehow felt a sense of familiarity with Natalie, causing her unease to grow. Previously, she had sent men to obtain Natalie's hair for a DNA test. However, the results demonstrated that they weren't sisters at all. "It can't be true." Shaking her head vehemently, she wanted to deny the thought that popped up in her head. In spite of that, she began to doubt the veracity of the test report. Yara's eyes were filled with disbelief, with the stain on her dress at the back of her mind. "Can it be that my twin sister survived the fire 5 years ago? Who exactly are you?" Yara murmured as if she was asking both Natalie and herself at the same time. Meanwhile, the crowd began to turn their attention toward them. Putting away the cigar in his hand, Thomas hurried to Yara's side. When he saw the mess she was in, his first response was not to console her. Instead, he questioned her with a frown. "Don't you know that you're about to speak in the second half? How did you get yourself in this mess?" "Dad, it wasn't my fault." Yara pointed at Natalie. "It's her. Natalie did this to me." As Thomas trailed the trajectory of Yara's finger, he first saw Natalie before noticing Ross and Samuel by her side. Neither Ross nor Samuel said a word. With one clad in black and the other white, both of them emanated a hostile aura, especially Samuel. Given how domineering his usual aura already was, his expressionless face struck fear into anyone who looked at him. After sizing up the situation, Thomas realized that regardless of who was in the right, Yara had offended both Samuel and Ross. It was one thing angering a nobody like Natalie. However, if Yara couldn't keep her ego in check and infuriate Samuel instead, it would be a massive mistake. Apologize, Thomas asserted. Yara thought that he was talking to Natalie. Yara, what are you spacing out for? Thomas's patience was already wearing thin. Apologize to Ms. Natalie and Mr. Bowers. Dad. If you still respect me as your dad, you will apologize to them, Thomas thundered. If you don't do it, I will personally teach you a lesson even if Mr. Bowers doesn't do so. A smirk broke out on Natalie's face as she watched the father-daughter duo. Thomas was ever ready to sacrifice his daughter for his goals. After all, he had done it to Natalie, and it wasn't a surprise that history repeated itself with Yara. Even though apologizing to Natalie in front of Samuel tore into Yara's heart, she realized that she had no other choice. Therefore, she kept reminding herself to endure the temporary humiliation, as she would exact her revenge 100-fold in the future. I am sorry. Tears welled up in Yara's eyes. When Yara was hurling accusations at me in front of Samuel, she was doing it loudly. Why has her voice suddenly become so soft? Natalie stared coldly at Thomas. Is she suffering from any health problems? Mr. Nichols, given how much money you make, don't forget to buy some supplements for your daughter to boost her health. She ridiculed Yara and Thomas at the same time. As Thomas's expression drastically changed, Samuel gave Natalie a look of adulation. Even though he didn't say a word, the way he looked at Natalie implied that she was speaking on his behalf. It felt as if he would support her regardless of what she said. Suppressing the rage he felt, Thomas smiled as he slapped Yara on the back. It seems to me that I've spoiled you. Speak louder. Filled with defiance, Yara gave Samuel a teary-eyed look. However, her pride was shattered when she saw him looking at her with disdain. I'm sorry, Yara apologized with reddened eyes. If the cup of coffee isn't enough for you to give vent to your anger, please go ahead and throw a few more at me. Pursing her lips, Natalie just kept quiet. Given how proud and Machiavellian Yara was, the only reason she apologized was that the circumstances forced her to. No longer bothered with Yara, Natalie turned toward Ross and asked, Are you all right? I'm fine. Taking off his glasses, Ross added, Chairman, the second half is about to start. I'll return after getting a change of clothes. This time, Ross emphasized the word chairman. All this while, Dream Corporation was run by Yandel. Thus, the public was only aware of him as the CEO and no one knew who the chairman was. Consequently, they began to discuss the matter after hearing what Ross had said. As Dream Pharmaceuticals Director of R&D, Ross would at most address Yandel as the CEO. There was no way he would address Natalie as the chairman unless she really was the chairman of the board. How is this possible? Yara recoiled in shock. Just like Yara, Thomas stared at Natalie in bewilderment. No one had expected that a lady in her 20s was responsible for building up Dream Corporation into a company that could stand toe-to-toe with Dexant Pharmaceutical in as little as 5 years. Natalie gave Ross the side eye. Nevertheless, she knew he didn't reveal her identity to expose her. Instead, he was trying to stop Yara from spreading malicious rumors. Even though the revelation was well-intended, its timing had caught her off guard. Nonetheless, if Yandel were around, he might react in a way that was even more dramatic. Yara, this is a conference, not a banquet. Natalie stared coldly at her. Don't tell me that you still think of me as Ross plus one? At that moment, Yara felt as if she had been figuratively slapped in the face. All this while, she had assumed that Natalie was just an ugly nobody and didn't imagine that she would turn out to be the chairman of Dream. Furthermore, influential figures such as Yandel and Ross were only her subordinates. Just when she thought that she had outshone Natalie, it dawned upon her that she was the one being outshone instead. The sudden realization devastated her. Even though Yara was wallowing in anguish, Natalie didn't feel jubilant at all. After all, it was nothing compared to what Yara had done to her. In fact, this was only the beginning of her revenge for what she had suffered 5 years ago. No longer bothered with Yara, Natalie led Ross to Samuel's private room on the second floor to change. Meanwhile, Yara felt so distraught that she didn't care about the coffee stain on her dress. What are you spacing out for? Go get yourself changed at once. Furrowing his brows, Thomas admonished her. Luckily, I got you to apologize, as I can see that Natalie is a lot more important to Samuel than you are. Or else, we'll just be making matters worse for ourselves. Dad, can you stop talking to me that way? Yara questioned with tears in her eyes. Can't you see that I'm suffering? For goodness sake. I'm your daughter Dash. How else do you want me to talk to you? Do you know what a failure you are? Over the last 5 years, you kept thinking that you could marry Samuel, but look at what has happened. You're a nobody to him. In fact, you're nothing but a joke. Having heard Thomas's words, Yara's sobs turned into laughter instead. Why did I even ask him such a stupid question? Back then, he sold Natalie to Mr. Quinn, who was already 60. Now that I failed to marry into the Bowers family, isn't it normal for him to complain? Go now before I get angry. Thomas patted Yara on her back. After stumbling forward, the only thing she could think of was to clean the stains off her gown. Taking a deep breath, Thomas held his forehead and sighed. Natalie, oh Natalie, you share the same name as my eldest daughter. Wouldn't it be great if you were really her? That would have been the perfect scenario for him. Dream would be his, and he would also get Samuel's support. The more Thomas thought about it, the more he desired it to be true. However, the moment he remembered the fire 5 years ago, he couldn't help but sigh. Back then, his daughter had been burnt to a crisp by the inferno. Consequently, Natalie was just someone who happened to share the same name. After he had changed, Ross made an excuse and left the private room, leaving Natalie and Samuel sitting on the sofa inside. Natalie kicked off her heels and curled her legs onto the sofa before running a finger underneath Samuel's tense chin. Didn't you say that you trusted me? Why are you still jealous? After she gently stroked his jaw with her slender hand, he grabbed it instead. I realize it too. Since you do, why are you still reacting this way? Natalie was puzzled. You'll have to ask yourself that, Samuel replied coldly as he turned his face away. Ask myself. Samuel pinched her cheeks next, causing her to pout in reflex. Even though my mind is clear and I trust you more than anyone else, I still feel outraged. Samuel asserted. You belong to me. And yet, you made close physical contact with another man. This really sounds unreasonable. Even though Natalie felt the urge to laugh, she didn't dare do so. If Ross hadn't supported me, what would have happened if I had a bad fall? Natalie blinked at him. Stumped, Samuel's expression darkened further. Looking at his conflicted expression, Natalie enjoyed the moment more than worrying about it. Despite the accusations Yara had hurled at her, Samuel's faith in her was unwavering. In fact, he didn't even criticize her, even though he was overwhelmed by jealousy. He doesn't feel intimidating when he's jealous. Instead, he looks more like an angry puppy. Even though he had a terrifying look on his face, she was unfazed by it. I knew it, Samuel. You can't do without me. Natalie laughed coquettishly. Do you think you control me now? Samuel shook her face gently. Isn't that the truth? Natalie's smugness annoyed Samuel. Not only did she control him, but she also had him eating out of her hand. Do you know that there's a consequence for having me on a leash? Before Natalie could grasp what he meant, Samuel had planted his lips on hers. In truth, Samuel had begun to feel jealous the moment she clapped for Ross. He had wanted himself to be the only man she was concerned with, which was an extreme and to a certain extent insane idea. However, every time he saw her, he just couldn't control himself. Even though they had spent the previous night making love, both of them still shared a long and passionate kiss. After a short break, the second half of the conference was about to begin. As for Natalie's lips, they were both red and swollen. Nat, do you want to watch the second half from here? No, I'll be affected by you. As her lips brushed across his, she remarked in annoyance. Who knows what you might do to me when your lust suddenly takes over? Since we're a couple, isn't it normal to be intimate? I'm not going to argue with you, as I'm already late. Scrambling away from underneath him, she left the private room in a hurry. Right before she took her seat on the first floor, she ran into Malcolm. With his keen sense of sight, Malcolm was astounded when he saw that Natalie's lips were swollen from being kissed. For her to be kissed to that extent, Natalie's lover must really be something. When he recalled his senior apprentice's frosty demeanor, Malcolm let out a disheartened sigh. "Old man, what's wrong?" "It's nothing," Malcolm replied. "Natalie, let me give you a piece of advice. Come to my private room to watch the rest of the conference. Now that everyone knows that you're Dream's chairman, you had better not go back there." Cognizant that Malcolm just wanted her to have some privacy, Natalie nodded in agreement. All right. During the second half, Yara had already changed out of her stained gown. Nevertheless, she was unable to recover from the earlier shock and still had an ashen look on her face. Even though she had found out that Natalie was the chairman of Dream, the sense of familiarity Natalie gave her continued to unsettle her. It felt as if Natalie didn't die and had simply changed her appearance. Can it be a side effect of the fire? Did she tell Samuel about what happened between us? Does Samuel know that Natalie had used her body as an antidote for him 6 years ago? Overwhelmed by all the questions that flooded her mind, Yara suddenly felt suffocated by them. Therefore, she could barely pay attention to what the host was saying on stage. At that moment, Thomas nudged her with his elbow and murmured, "It's your turn. Get a grip of yourself and don't disgrace me." After walking up the stage in a daze, she stared at the crowd down below and began to regurgitate her speech. Under normal circumstances, she would deliver her speech with passion. However, she had no idea what she was talking about at that moment. She simply relied on her memory to drone on with a listless look on her face. Consequently, it was obvious to the audience that Yara's mind was somewhere else. Back on the second floor, Malcolm was stroking his beard while shaking his head. He lamented, "Your sister is the spitting image of you. And yet, how can her character and capabilities be so different? Actually, she has her talents too." After taking a sip of coffee, Natalie continued, "Unfortunately, instead of developing them, she kept pursuing what was out of her reach. As time went by, she forgot what her talents were and what she truly enjoyed. All that was left was the ability to plunder what others have." Nonetheless, I must admit that the script is well written. With 20 to 30 years of experience, the staff that my granddad has chosen would definitely do a good job writing it. Natalie put the coffee back on the table. Initially, I assumed that she would have something to surprise me with. But now, it seems unlikely. Malcolm's objective was to watch the speech delivered by Dream's representative, and also Natalie's philosophy. Now that he did, he had no more regrets. As for Yara, he simply treated her as entertainment. Malcolm enjoyed having nuts while doing so, but his brittle teeth didn't allow him to crack their husks. As a result, Natalie cracked them for him as both of them listened to Yara's speech. When she shoved some of them into his hand, Malcolm asked in surprise, "Are these for me? Would I refuse to give them to you after shoving them into your hands?" Natalie squirmed her lips. "Ever since I left your place, I haven't had the opportunity to show my appreciation to you and Mrs. Trevor. After all, I'm not someone ungrateful. I do remember everything that you have done for me." Natalie's candid words moved Malcolm. "It seems I should show these nuts to Donna before eating them." Natalie rolled her eyes at him. Does he have to be that dramatic? When she saw how touched Malcolm was, she continued dehusking more nuts for him. The more Malcolm looked at Natalie, the more adorable he found her. Reluctant to let her be taken away by an unknown man, he began to probe again. "Natalie, your senior is here today too. When the conference ends, shall I take you to meet him?" "Of course, I want to meet him. However, you have to promise not to turn it into a matchmaking session." Natalie pointed at Malcolm's nose. "Master, I'm not kidding. My other half is extremely possessive. If he finds out that you're trying to get me a boyfriend, he will definitely come at you. Natalie, from the sound of it, the man you like is a little crazy." Right then, Samuel, who was in the neighboring room, sneezed. "Did you catch a cold, Mr. Bowers? Should we get a doctor?" Billy asked worriedly. "I don't have a cold." Narrowing his eyes, Samuel said nonchalantly, "Even if I do have a cold, my fiancé has medical knowledge. I can just get her to help me." The former was just worried about his health, but he ended up having to see him show off his affection for Natalie. Mr. Bowers? A smile hung on Samuel's lips as he continued to sip on his cup of tea. Everyone looked forward to the second half of the conference due to Yara's speech. However, not only was it unimpressive, but it also couldn't be compared to Ross. The woman left the stage, feeling dejected and lost. I had high hopes for you, but this is how you repay me? Thomas questioned coldly. He thought that everything would be smooth sailing with her help. Yet, who would have thought that she wasn't even half as good as Melissa? The man started to regret giving Yara such a great opportunity. Perhaps he should have used Melissa, for if she put in more effort, she might have surprised him with great results, and it would greatly benefit her marriage in the future. In short, his daughters were no more than his bargaining chips. However, he had not received any profitable results at all today. Yara took her seat absent-mindedly, as if nothing was going through her ears. Thomas could not deal with her in front of so many people, but he also thought that she had embarrassed him, so he just left the place in a hurry. Meanwhile, in one of the private rooms on the second floor, Malcolm was still quibbling with Natalie. I swear to God that I just want you to meet your senior. It's just ridiculous that you've never met each other when you have the same master. Really? She pointed at his nose before saying seriously, I'll make sure that Mrs. Trevor finds all of the allowances you've hidden away if you lie to me. It's true, he said, nodding his head fervently. It's fine. Donna already found all of my money before I left. I had to spend the night in the courtyard. Malcolm couldn't give up no matter what. He wanted them to meet, thinking that there might be a possibility that something romantic would happen between them. Natalie felt more at ease when she saw how he dared to swear at something like that. All right, I'll let him know that I'll be home later tonight. Sure, go ahead. I'll let your senior know and tell him to pick a nicer place to meet up, he said excitedly before leaving the room. At that, Natalie gave Samuel a call. I'll be home later tonight, Samuel. Can you leave with me? He asked disappointedly. Nope. There's a celebration party tonight. Ignoring the fact that Malcolm was trying to play Cupid, Natalie actually looked forward to meeting her mysterious senior as well. Besides her master and her other senior, she had never met the senior that Malcolm kept talking about. Yet, her master kept talking about him and praising him. Old man is quite a picky person, so it's quite rare for him to praise someone like that. Don't drink so much. Okay. Don't get intimate with other men. Okay. Keep me in your mind. Natalie answered with an okay, out of habit again. Upon hearing her reply, Samuel smiled and said, Be good. I'll come to pick you up later. Not long after they ended the call, a knock sounded at the door. Mr. Bowers, it's your master. Let him in. He got up from the couch and smoothed out the wrinkles on his shirt. Malcolm asked with a smile as he walked towards Samuel. You haven't met my junior apprentice, have you? I'll be meeting with her tonight. She was so excited when she heard that she'll be meeting you. I'm sure you will do her this favor, right? Are you sure you don't have any other intentions? Samuel asked with furrowed brows. No, then, with a serious look on his face, the old man said, I just want you to meet with that junior of yours. I have no other intentions. If I do, I'll let Donna confiscate all of the allowances I kept for myself. Having no other choice as he couldn't win against Malcolm, Samuel agreed. All right then. But I still have some work to do right now. We might have to meet a little later. It's fine. Just send me the address later. The old man patted his shoulder and smiled ear to ear. I will wait for you at the restaurant with your junior. With that, he left the private room. Samuel shook his head helplessly. I don't care if Master wants to set me up with that junior of mine. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint her. I've already found the love of my life. No other woman can catch my eye no matter how beautiful they are. It was even more troublesome for Natalie to leave the place than when she arrived. After it was revealed that she was the chairman of Dream Corporation, the people who came to the conference were all trying to find an opportunity to get on her good side, which was quite a nuisance to her. Fortunately, the security Zachary had arranged for Malcolm was great. Natalie followed her master and left quietly. Fortunately, no one pestered them while they made their way out. They passed by Yara as they left in their car. She looked just like a broken doll. Her face was pale as a sheet, and she was walking at a tortoise's pace. This woman, what a sore loser. Malcolm muttered. That's not true. She didn't even lose that much, Natalie said coldly as she glanced at Yara. She's only a sore loser if she has lost everything. There's still so much to her name right now, she continued. Taking a sideways glance at her, a thought surfaced in the man's mind. What a ruthless person. She's just like Samuel. They're so similar even when it comes to ruthlessness. What are they if they are not perfect for each other? I'll have to do my best to set them up tonight as their master. At that moment, Yara had no idea that Natalie was in the car that just passed by her. But she knew very well that the Rolls-Royce behind belonged to her father, Thomas. The person inside must have seen her, but instead of stopping to pick her up, they streaked past her without any hesitation. Yara smiled bitterly at that. He's my biological father. He'd speak sweetly to me when he needed my help, but now that I am of no use to him, he disregarded me. Nonetheless, she already knew how he was since she was a child. Even after being treated like that, Yara wasn't sad but felt that it was just the reality. What hurt her the most was that for 5 whole years, she was determined to become the lady of the Bowers family. But despite her efforts, Samuel was drifting further and further away from her. No matter what she did, she couldn't get him to favor her. The woman was walking very slowly. She laughed for a moment and cried the next. Out of the blue, a white minivan stopped beside her. 2 men wearing sunglasses and black clothing came down from the car and grabbed hold of Yara's arms. Who are you? Her eyes widened in fright as she continued. I'm going to scream if you continue. But they could not even be bothered by her threat. One of the men then covered her mouth and nose with a cloth soaked in ether. Yara struggled against them for a few moments before her eyes rolled back and she fainted. At that, the men swiftly lifted her into the minivan. The whole process had only taken a minute. On the other side, at Acapella, Malcolm and Natalie were waiting in a private room as a woman in a figure-hugging gown filled their cups with tea. Natalie, there's only 2 of us now. Can you take off the hyper-realistic mask you're wearing? I'm not saying that you look ugly like this. It's just that I'm not used to it, Malcolm asked tentatively. Why did you bring this up so suddenly, old man? She asked as her hand that was holding the cup of tea stopped midair. It's just, this is your first time meeting your senior. Don't you think it's kind of inappropriate to show him a fake face? The former stated. A smile appeared on Natalie as she swirled the tea in her cup. Well, that really depends on my mood. Hearing that, Malcolm stayed silent. In the beginning, he liked having an apprentice who had an attitude. However, things were getting out of hand with each apprentice he had. Their attitude was going to be the end of him one day. At night, Samuel arrived at Acapella once he was done with his work. He wore a dark suit with sapphire cufflinks as his accessories. They were low-key but also luxurious at the same time, shining brightly as the light shone on them. His broad shoulders and his devilishly handsome face would make any woman crazy. On his way to the private room, he saw a woman who seemed to be the manager criticizing 2 other women wearing figure-hugging gowns. You've been working here for a month already, Charin. How can you still serve our customers the wrong dish? I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I'll let the kitchen staff know to change it. One of the waitresses kept apologizing, her eyes red and teary. She looked so pitiful that it could probably evoke the sympathy of anyone who saw her. That look of yours might work on a man, but it won't work on me, the manager said. You better leave this place voluntarily if you make another mistake again. I got it. At that, the manager pressed the doorbell and tended to the customer in the private room. Samuel had witnessed everything, but felt nothing toward what had just happened. Besides Natalie, he was never one to be sympathetic toward others. Charin bit on her lips, and without caring if there was anyone behind her, she turned around. The plate she was holding crashed into him in an instant. The next second, the wine in her other hand spilled all over the man's chest. Seeing that she had caused trouble, Charin reached out to try and wipe the wine off of Samuel. Right when she was about to touch him, the man grabbed her wrist. Who gave you permission to touch me? Samuel spat coldly. I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't do it on purpose. I just wanted to clean it up for you, she explained frantically. However, as Charin lifted her head to look at Samuel, she froze on the spot. She was stunned at how handsome he was, as she had never seen anyone like him before. The man furrowed his brows and let go of her wrist. There's no need for that. Once he was finished speaking, he left for the restroom to clean himself up without batting another eye at her. She glanced at her wrist, which was now red from being grabbed earlier, but she didn't feel any pain at all. Charing kept her eyes on Samuel, watching him walk away until he was completely out of sight. "That man is so handsome, Charing," her colleague said as she nudged her with her elbow. "He's cold and aloof, but he didn't try to insult you for what happened either." Charing nodded and finally understood what it was like to fall for someone at first sight. "What are you still standing there for? Go get him a towel." She was hesitant at first, but nodded her head vehemently a second later. Maybe God is playing favorites and is giving me a chance this time. The mysterious senior apprentice was late. All Natalie could do was stay with her master and drink tea with him. After a long while, she got up and left for the restroom. At the end of the corridor, the men's and women's restrooms were opposite each other. In the men's restroom, Samuel was washing off the wine stains at the sink, his eyes as cold as ice. A woman with a great figure, who was wearing a gown with a slit at the side, handed him a towel. Though her shapely figure looked really sexy, she had an innocent look on her face. She looked innocent yet seductive at the same time. Any man would have fallen for her just by looking at her. "Sir, your shirt is wet. Your hands are wet too. Why don't you let me help?" Charing said. Samuel's brows drew tightly together as he said icily, "Get lost." Those words hurt her. She was the apple of everyone's eyes in her school. It was also due to her beautiful looks that she was able to keep her job at the restaurant. She had full confidence in her looks. What's more, she had fallen in love with him at first sight. The woman had never experienced such an obsession with someone in her life. She refused to believe that the man wouldn't feel anything for her if she continued to please him. "I've already apologized, sir. I just want to help you clean up. I will do a good job, and I'll make sure it'll satisfy you." Charing smiled and tried to press her soft body against his arm. Right then, an arm appeared before her chest, blocking her from proceeding forward anymore. Having been interrupted by Natalie, the woman glared at her and asked, "What are you doing?" "I should be the one asking you that," Natalie said with a cold smile. "Are you really that desperate? He already told you to get lost, but here you are forcing yourself on him." Anger boiled in Charing when her intention was exposed. "That's between him and me. It's none of your business, okay?" She studied the freckles on Natalie's face, and a hint of contempt flashed through her eyes. "Perhaps. Are you going to help him clean up if not me?" At first, she thought that the latter would be rational and shut up obediently after hearing her words. However, to her surprise, Natalie smiled and said, "That's exactly what I want to do." Charing was about to call her shameless. However, after giving it some thought, she decided that an ugly woman like her was just seeking trouble. With that thought in mind, she changed plans. "All right then. Here's the towel. Why don't you clean him up then?" she challenged as she handed Natalie the towel. The latter grabbed the towel and turned to look at Samuel. She glared at him and sighed inwardly. "He is nothing but trouble. It's so troublesome that he's so handsome. I've only been away from him for a few hours, but he managed to find himself another admirer." Samuel looked down at her. A slight smile hung on his lips at the sight of her being jealous. Pouting, Natalie started to unbutton his shirt grumpily, revealing his well-toned muscles. She lifted her hand and began wiping off the excess water on his chest with the towel. The man could feel her cold fingers and her hot breaths on his chest as she wiped. The once cold and arrogant man became gentle in an instant in front of Natalie. Not only did he not reject her, but he also opened up his shirt more so that she could wipe easily. What? Charing would not have believed it if she hadn't seen it with her own eyes. "I've been pestering him and trying to help him, but he was cold and arrogant. His eyes were even full of disdain for me. But not only is he cooperating, but he also looks like he's enjoying it when this woman with a face full of freckles is doing it. This is outrageous." Humiliated, Charing yelled indignantly, Why would you let a woman like her wipe you down instead of me? Samuel took Natalie's tiny hand and pressed it to his chest. He scoffed. Do you truly believe that you hold a candle to her? Where do I fall short? Chereen's confidence wavered under Samuel's cold gaze. From the top of your head to the bottom of your feet, Samuel replied, his eyes glinting with hostility. Leave. I don't want you tainting the view. Chereen could not believe the words that were coming out of the man's mouth. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and she ran away, sobbing. However, her hasty actions caused her to stumble over her own feet. Chereen wobbled on her stilettos and crashed onto the ground. Despite her mortification, she turned to peek at Samuel, hoping that he would be concerned for her. Her heart shattered when she realized that Samuel did not even spare her a glance. She pathetically climbed to her feet and left with her tail between her legs. Let go. Natalie struggled to free her hand from Samuel's strong grip. My shirt is still wet. Don't you want to continue to wipe me dry? Samuel teased with a devilish smirk. No, thanks. My arm is sore, Natalie muttered, pursing her lips. Her zeal from moments ago was nowhere to be found. Natalie quickly withdrew her hand when she felt Samuel's fingers loosen. However, the man's arm snaked around her slender waist, and he pulled her close. Are you still mad? What's there to be mad about? Natalie retorted. I swear that I didn't let the woman touch me, not even a graze. Samuel defended himself. Don't worry. I know my boundaries, and I promise that I'm clean. Samuel, what in the world are you saying? Who cares whether you're clean or not? Natalie interrupted. Contrary to her harsh words, a warmth spread through her heart. Samuel knew that Natalie had experienced multiple counts of betrayal in the past, so he was on a mission to shower her with love and give her the security she had been deprived of. Samuel's gaze riveted on Natalie's delicate face. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. Oh no! What should I do? The desire to kiss Natalie consumed him. Samuel gently nudged Natalie's nose as he leaned in closer to capture her lips with his own. However, Natalie's hand shot up to intercept his advances, and the kiss landed on her palm. No! Natalie exclaimed frantically. I have an appointment with someone important today. My lips are already swollen from the kiss this afternoon. I wouldn't be able to explain myself if it swells more. Someone important? Samuel echoed as he arched an eyebrow. Yes. Natalie nodded in affirmation. The friendship between apprentices who share the same master is as strong as a familial bond. My senior is practically my brother. Samuel's face clouded over. Is the person you're meeting male or female? He interrogated. A male. The words had barely left Natalie's mouth when Samuel's lips descended upon hers. The kiss seemed to carry a hint of vengeance. Since she doesn't want her lips to be kiss-swollen, I'll do exactly that. Let it be a warning to that man that this woman is taken, and that he should stay away from her. The kiss was so intense that Samuel's teeth broke Natalie's skin. A long while later, Samuel released Natalie with a self-satisfied grin that rivaled that of a Cheshire cat. I have to meet someone too. Samuel traced a finger down Natalie's nose and cautioned, don't take off the hyper-realistic mask for no reason. Call me when you're done, and I'll come to pick you up. With that, Samuel promptly left. Natalie stood rooted to the spot, gasping for air as she reeled back from the kiss. This man is way too domineering. Meanwhile, Samuel strode into the private room he had reserved. Malcolm, who was nodding off from boredom, immediately perked up at the sight of Samuel. Samuel here. Master, Samuel greeted, his expression stony as he gave Malcolm a curt nod. Malcolm waved a hand at him. Don't look so cold later. Just look at that face of yours. You'll scare off your junior. My face has always looked this way. Malcolm narrowed his eyes and warned, I'm not the only one who has a soft spot for your junior. Donna and the rest adore her as well. If you dare bully her, none of us will go easy on you. I'm not interested in my junior in that way. Samuel took a seat and poured himself a cup of tea. If you're thinking about setting me up with her, I advise you to give up early on, he said impassively. Save the talk about giving up till you see her. No need for that. Samuel shot back without a second thought. The corners of his lips quirked upward as he continued. It doesn't matter if she has the beauty to overturn nations. I won't have that sort of intent toward her.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.